of the pentagram in the night sky. So this means if you did a time lapse of Venus precession over 8 years, it would draw out a pentagram. Now, this is incredible because it actually hints to, just like all the flowers you see around Earth with also the pentagram, and a lot of the fruits like papayas and all these different things around with these pentagram or shapes on them, or pentagon shapes, it turns out that this actual symbol is the deepest arcana that could ever be really uncovered on the planet. But yet, this same symbol is flashed around all the time as if it has something to do with worshiping ghouls and devils and ghosts and demons and all sorts of stuff. So what I mean by why you would have to go back to your origin point is this symbol. If you type in your Wikipedia right now, ancient Venus, you'll get a picture of a lady who is rather voluptuous.
Yes, she is.
Mm-hmm. Carrying a horn in her hand. If you keep scrolling down, you'll see even the face is not even actually humanoid. Mm-hmm. And then if somebody for 1 minute says, well, these are Alkebulanans, or what they call African, these are Alkebulanian fetishes, these were all found in Europe. Okay? Most of them were all found in Europe. So what we find here is that all the races and all the racials, which are really mathematical terms, on this planetary system is going to first have to know where their mother came from. Okay? It's the mystery of the Sphinx. It's not just a black man. It is a black woman. Mm. But even to use that term black is already derogatory. So the truth here is that if you don't know your origin, you will never know where you came in. So this is for any race. If you don't know where the portal is, you can never get out. And that's why the mystery of the Sphinx is, if you never know, you'll die every day and you'll never figure out the secret. You'll be lost in the lands of Bar. And every single thing that they said was, if you couldn't crack the mystery of the Sphinx, it's actually happening to everyone.
Yeah.
So now it's time to crack the mystery, because the mystery has to do specifically with this planetary system and how influential it has been at spreading the seeds. And this is all the research from science or wherever you want to draw your knowledge from, that the seeds of many plants actually have been bought from this planetary system. Now, I got to go deeper with this, before we resurface back to the top here. Because as we progress, now you're seeing what Wikipedia and the authority is saying is the ancient Venus. But as you maybe do another type and just say modern Venus, or type Lucifer, and see what happens. Mm-hmm. And so what happens here now, let's just take the etymology to actually show us what we're dealing with here. Now, Venus is known as the light bearer, okay? All this is, to simplify it, is saying the life bearer, because light is life. That's why the words sound the same. So the life bearer would always be a reference probably to a woman, since she's got a womb, right? Mm-hmm. And so even this term Lucifer, which is actually the Spanish Moorish term for Venus, gives a little bit more of a revelation about luz, which means light, and Ifer, which actually means to encrypt or decrypt. So this basically means the one who can encrypt and decrypt light, or something that can encrypt and decrypt light. So when we sure enough look at the womb, we find, for those of us that have already pierced into the metaphysical knowledge, we find that the womb is special because it's capable of taking a spirit and bringing it and melding it with a fleshly body. And while we may downplay stuff like that and upplay the iPhone 2019 or whatever, this is quite incredible considering what we've created so far. Binding spirit to flesh, wow. The womb is capable of doing that. So it's able to cipher and decrypt. So this is power. But what I'm just trying to highlight here is that now, I'm sure if you type modern Venus or Lucifer, which is still a cognate of all the terms that are being used so far, you get a procession from first. Notice how for attraction, if you go to the old ancient men and you ask them thousands of years ago what is attractive to them, it's definitely not going to match up with what the average man these days finds attractive. And that is by design and by program. Because back in the day, men actually found these big, voluptuous women more attractive because the idea was to have as many children as possible and to have those children come out of durable wombs so that we could all survive continuously. That was the only real objective of things, to continuously birth children and bring more children into this reality, which were reflections, of course, of us in our perfected stages. So the benefit of this then is that you have someone that has the durability. That's what the image was, the durability to survive the times. So as the Romans get their hands on this, the next stage is Venus becomes red hair. She's coming out of a clamshell. She's lost about 5 dress sizes, or maybe 6. And now this image is being delivered as what people just had psychologically in their mind, where their abundance is. And this is for all races, okay? So the abundance goes from being more than you can even handle to almost barely enough, right?
Wow.
But it doesn't stop there. Then a book is rewritten and taken from the old Negus called the Old Testament and completely edited. And in one part, the jealous beings who are writing the book literally say, Venus, Lucifer, basically, how you were, and first enamors it. You were the best of all the best. You were the greatest of them all. But then I found fault in you. I'm hating on you. And now I'm going to cast you down, and now I'm going to do this to you and that, and you are going to be Satan. Now, Lucifer and Satan are actually 2 totally different beings, and that's how you know whoever's writing this is not even an adept and doesn't want to reveal depth knowledge. These are 2 totally different planets. That's Venus and Saturn. But now Lucifer actually becomes Satan because now they're actually demonizing both of them. But we don't need to get to that right now. All we need to understand is now the ancient mother, the nourisher, becomes a genderless angel, because angels are genderless. They're eunuchs. They work for God, supposedly, in this mythos. That doesn't have any reproductive organs, is what I'm saying, is what it becomes next. So it comes from something that was a seed that has that horn, which is the cornucopia and the life, to now something that has no reproductive organs. That's when Venus becomes an angel. And then even in the fell swoop, now it's cast low and it becomes the devil. People need to stop for a moment and think, what would be the ramifications in our whole consciousness if for one moment we imagine what gave us life brings fear and death? And at that point, if anybody wants to go even further with knowledge and doesn't know and hasn't thought about just how that would affect our psyche, they haven't even began to be intellectuals. They haven't even began to really go deep into the minds. Like the Kybalion says, all is the mind. People want to know where wind comes from the mind. Only the wind is what you can't see, but it's still moving, just like your thoughts. The wind has no bounds and no limits, just like your thoughts. But there's so much about the ancient knowledge that also says, but wind also doesn't have a body either. And so the reason why we created the bodies is for you to know the limits, for you to know the order. You only can eat so much. You only can breathe so much. And that regulatory system allows you to be present. Because if you're just in the mind, you just want to fly out of the crown chakra, you're going to be like Hermes, going to and fro. But you're not going to be available for the children right now. You're not going to be tied into yourself and completely there for your family.
Wow.
So see, every time we split a God, we create a day. And what that means is that every time we find fault in our family members, we separate from them and they leave us and they create something and it is separate from us. This means that the only way we are going to come back together is if the same thing that's happening with people, even in their own personal nucleuses, with the fight against mom and the fight against the brother and all this, is if we bring something in that's powerful enough to unify all those components. So, of course, we would need real power beyond what Dr. Xavier can say he's going to give you.
Yeah.
We need real power, not like the fake stuff. So a lot of people are attracted to that power, but I'm going to show you the head crack here. So now we know we've identified that Venus, according to them, is some dark being. Let's just put it like that, okay? So let's move over to the next dark being on the list, Mr. Satan. 6-pointed star. Now, in ancient days, for anybody who's done their research, if you go into the Tamil Nadu, you actually find that they're venerating a being, a king known as Murugan, right? He has several names. He is a Dravidian or a Nagus. He is carrying what we call now the Star of David, but these people are actually Dravidian, so it's really the Star of Dravid, okay? And this star, as all modern scientists and astrophysicists and all that now know that this star is a direct relation to not only the torsion field, also known as Ohm, but also a map that gives you every single place that life exists. Because in every place where the vertices connect in the torus field, they call this the horizontal and the vertical. Every place that connects, you will find life. So the Ohm, even as a symbol, or the six-pointed star, even as a symbol, or the Magan star, or the Dravidian star as a symbol, gives you a whole different level of power and connection. And this was why they were marked. And later on, they say, "Oh yeah, we have this power that's in this case." And when we open this case up, everything in front of us gets terminated, but we stay alive. Because this power, even in Freemasonry, is known as the key, the hidden key, the secret. And the secret is that it actually is inside of you. That you can turn it on with your own consciousness, and it is perpetual energy. It is a vehicle. That's why they call it the Merkaba and all this new stuff they keep creating. It is a vehicle that allows you to travel with your consciousness. So now I've identified for you, because of course, Satan, as you know it, is the Darth Vader of the entire story now, right? Yes, in this reality that we're living, where this is now the ordination of the Father symbol, the patience, the time, the gold, the gems, everything that it takes a long time to do, the enforcer, the ruler, the last thing you see when you leave, the judge, the Jew, the square, the pillar, all of that was our Father. Okay? But now what is it concocted as? Some horned creature living underneath the earth.
Wow.
And then people are allowing this to go on and they're perpetuating this. But so let me show you how a triple bind works, a triple knot. Remember, they got the Gordian knots. A triple knot. This is braiding. Braiding was power. A triple knot or a triple bind is this. So the first thing I do is I re-engineer completely what your origin is. I make what your father and your mother truly is out of beings that you're totally afraid of. And then I tell you that I actually worship them under that guise, meaning that the Illuminati and the rest of these secret societies are literally saying that they worship Lucifer and worship Satan under the guise in which they show us in horror movies.
Wow.
Okay? But we forget that this is the same group. First of all, for the last 3,000 years, for their structure that they put together, nobody could actually worship what they really were anyway. So they all became crypto. They all became, when they leave the house, they're Catholics, but when they go back home, they practice their tradition. So this only breeds in the DNA an act of a habit of going outside and being fake. And this habit is being fed still to this very day. This means that it is natural for now people, because of what they've done to their DNA, to go out of their house and act like something totally different than who they really are. So if you ask them still, what do you believe in? They'll say, I'm a Catholic, whether they know it or not, because all this stuff that's still being pushed forth is being pushed forth by the Jesuit commissions. So what we're talking about here is we're talking about the deepest levels of mind control, and also how to break this mind control, because that's the first bind. So now the second bind is, so they tell you that, yes, we are Satan worshipers and Lucifer worshipers. And here's what happens. There are some people that they have a lust for power so much, from all colors, that they go and buy these books and study about what it is to become a Satanist from the modern interpretation. And the interesting part is, if we ever studied these people, none of them ever receive what it is that they thought they were going to receive. Now, most of the things they receive are coming from a psychological disorder of abuse and also abandonment, because what they have this idea that they want to become completely powerful, filled with this electricity, basically, that they can zap people with on the fly and just kill them. And then that they can get all the girls because they can always make her just be a slave. And then they got this big monster behind them that anybody who objects to them, it just rips them apart. None of them have that.
Yeah.
So this means even how they sell the story, not to mention if you can even stomach it, because most people that go and try to study that stuff and say, oh, this is what I want to do. At worst, at best, they just become emos. They just become extremely depressed. And they're extremely weak. So the reality here is what is even being promised to practice Luciferianism according to the modern term and Satanism according to the modern term doesn't even deliver what the actual tradition they brought forth says. Not to mention, that's not even what it is. But the triple bind here is that we believe that they worship under those guises. So it makes us afraid of them. You see, when we see that, oh shit, they killing babies and stuff, but man, I want a Ferrari, but damn, I gotta do, this is anybody who's gone far enough to read what the books talk about that you should be doing and killing bats and biting shit and all sorts of wild stuff. And now this is a very deep, esoteric, adept conversation, by the way, if I didn't give you that disclaimer. Yep. So when people read all of that stuff, they look at that and they're like, I ain't gonna do that. I'll still wear the black though. I'll still they'll do a little bit of it. They'll do a little bit of making everybody think that they're into that and that people should fear them. But truly, when they look at that, and this is for everybody, we're like, man, they must be really dark. And it makes us afraid of them. Now, truthfully, when they go home, most of them practice Judaism. So they tell everyone else, hey, in astronomy, they practice astronomy. They practice the laws of the seasons. Casting the forecast, this is old stuff. As a farmer, why is prophet and prophecy tied in etymologically? Like some people don't even get that. It's because as a farmer, if I'm looking at the stars, I know exactly when to plant crops where they're going to grow the strongest. And when I do that, I make a profit.
Wow.
It's as simple as that, because if I do that at the wrong time, I don't make a profit. So foretelling things through the stars has been like ancient. Not to mention, every time one of us are born, we appear in the sky. So this literally allows us to be able to calculate our own vector and know exactly where we're at and the energies around us and all sorts of stuff. And that's what they practice inside in their own sanctums. But outside, they're worshiping a ghoul that every single horror movie continues to intensify in front of us. And then the Christians, with their huge hive mind subconscious projections, confirm that. This is Satanism.
Wow.
This is Lucifer. I.e., this is your mother, this is your father. So then, as this goes forward, when you subconsciously reject your mother, you subconsciously reject your body, because your body is your mother. The body is feminine. It is the feminine part of the marriage. It is the urn or the chalice. So this is why, because people say, well, no, I respect my body, but people eat anything. They actually give their bodies to others and don't really even consider who they're giving their body to. So meaning there's a lot of body abuse. We have this code running where we naturally abuse ourselves. And that's coming from, we're sending an external signal that our mother should be abused because we're the good ones and they're the bad ones. And now all of these interpretations, if you zoom out, Saturn is seen as time because it knows in sternness and coldness and severity, because it's not going to cry for you, because when it knows you have to go through 2,000 years of an experience, or it would spend 2,000 years crying. And for the wise, that doesn't make any sense. So what I'm saying is that when you're talking to someone young and you're asking them to get committed and to make a sacrifice, meaning sacrifice some time, some of the pleasure and all the different things that you want to actually get some wisdom, they don't want that. So all the younger nations look upon the older nations like we, and when we were young, looked at our grandmothers when she gave you that hard pinch, and our grandfathers when he gave you that whooping, if you were still in that family structure, which is the original family structure. So we didn't want that. And so we're also living in a new nation that is looking at all of the old systems, the systems of Venus, the system of Saturn, the five-pointed star and the six-pointed star. That's all it is. It's even encrypted in the streets of Washington is the pentagram and the hexagram, but it's upside down. So we'll digress here for a moment, because now when you ask, so I can answer your question properly, what is going on in Texas? Texas were the last the Hyksos kings. Those are the Hicks. Wow. Okay? The Hicks learned the cattle ranching from the Negus. That's why the first symbol of the English language is also an ancient language, is an A. When you turn an A upside down, that is the head of a cow. And it's because that was the world's first currency. Okay? So to have a lot of cattle meant that you were rich. And that is still almost in play today. So when the Hyksos came into the Fertile Crescent, and as the last people to plunder the area, they learned about this herding. And because there was a complete connection between Al Morocco, which is what we're calling United States, it was a complete connection between all these countries as far as trade. They continued to move, especially after they had kept penetrating what was the Northern Gate. As they kept penetrating that area, they continued to move their crops and everything into that westward expansion to get to the land of Kali, which we call California. And it's because anything that happens in the north affects the south. That's how our bodies are really situated too. Anything that's happening in our mind affects everything else in our body. So that whole area in the United States, as we're calling it now, but America that's why you got so many of these beautiful national parks with, these are the enchanted realms. This is really enchanted stuff. But guess what? Most of that stuff, if you look on Google Earth, you cannot access. They're all reserves. Most of the people in the United States, if they even look at a topological map, live in the most smallest areas, while all of the nature is off limits. Yep. So what this is telling us is that we have some amazing things about to happen, because we've even been able to survive without any connection to who our mothers and fathers truly are long enough to get the complete experience, just like grandma would have done it. You're going to, what's happening? Jump in there. Something's happening to him. Stop it from happening to him. No, baby, he's got to go through this. Okay? And remember, even when you got smacked in your grandmother's house, if that happened to you, the first thing you said was, why did you smack me? This is why people say, why is this all happening to me? This is the same energy. Why am I even here? Why are they allowing us to be raped? Why is this? That's the same why, as deep as that may sound. And it's because there is something that you are being prepared for. So that way you have a full 360 scope of what knowledge and wisdom really is. And remember, the guardian of this realm is Saturn. That is the old black Moorish guardian with the scimitar, not a scythe, a scimitar. And that being is basically time. So it's not sitting here like, oh man, this has got to happen. And then you got others also, they're on the Save the Earth mission, right? They feel like we got to save the world. I mean, Earth as a world, we need to save our DNA, because Earth as a world, when it wants to be saved, it just shakes itself a little bit. And everything comes down. And that's easy. That's simple. Anybody who's experienced what nature can really do knows, as a sentient being, if it really wanted to off everybody, we would have been gone. Okay? So what this is really about is this is about us taking upon ourselves our responsibility. We were given one command: guard. This is why we're known as the gardeners. It's the same word, guard, because when the trees are shedding the seeds have to go through the cultivation process. And the reason why this is a benefit for us to get ourselves in tune and start to nurture our seeds, which are our ideas and our children, so that they grow up right, is because then they don't reap thorns and thistles for you. Then you can actually rest, which is not a reference to death, but a reference to now you actually can chill out, be like, yeah, he's got a job now. He's working great. He's even sending me money. He's taking care of me. I don't feel like I need to worry about him. See, what's happening is that all of our things that we're planting, this includes our companies, our projects, They're reaping thorns and thistles for us. We're working so hard. And that's going to happen in the beginning, but you got to make sure that you're aware of how all this works so that way you're really rearing something to actually become one day what puts happiness and fulfillment in your heart. But you can see the play because the play and the reality is our children are abandoned right now. In most cases, the children, our seeds, are basically spread apart and the bards or the birds are plucking them up. That's the parable of the sower. Even deep knowledge that's coming down, like this is deep knowledge. Some people are like trying to grasp for something to understand or that they can even comprehend. This actually shows just within itself what this could really be like if somehow we forget who we are.
Yes.
And someone else definitely knows. There's a lot of life forms. So there's always something sitting there like, if he don't know who he is or if she don't know who she is, I definitely am an opportunist on this one. I can take this all the way because there's disincarnate. And what that means is even to have a body is a gift. That's why people who are healthy feel like, or should feel like they even got a greater gift if you ever seen somebody sick before. So the reality is this gift, we got a gift. And we're being conned out of that gift because we're not even taking care of the gift. The gift, this body is perpetual. It's based on the Om Phi-based geometry. It was the first perpetual creation. But we can only wear it down with our own consciousness by going into wars with ourselves. Internally, the left and the right hemisphere of the brain, instead of coming together and working together to create the true magic, being in both worlds at the same time. You see, one side of us is in the spiritual world and the other side of us is in the physical world. Wow, what a benefit. There are some beings that are just on the spiritual world, and they call them disincarnate, meaning they don't have car or meat, as in carnivore or carne. They don't have flesh. So let us talk very briefly about what resonance really is and how this continues. What is possession? What are we dealing with sometimes in our own consciousness that seems to want to self-destruct us? Because if we're blaming these police, these are just Saturnalian enforcers. That's all they are. They carry a star. They don't know anything. They're only given charge. Guards don't own what they're guarding. They have these stars because they're trying to strike fear. This is an old ancient knowledge from the Arab traditions. If you have a silver star, demons can see that and they fear it. That's alchemy.
Right. Yep.
And so a 7-pointed gold one is even more fearful. So you have to maybe pull that out on larger demons. So all these people who are operating the realm now took laws and ethics and rules from the ancient system that was how you control when somebody gets out of control. It's just they've taken complete control. They have no intention on helping anyone with this knowledge. They just as soon as throw everyone behind bars. See? And so let's digress for a minute. Let's digress and see if we can level this out, because as we dive through this, it does take having a certain amount of knowledge already for this to be like, okay, I get that. I click with that. It takes occult knowledge. You really actually have to know what Monday is, what Tuesday is, right? Like, so Tuesday is Mars, Wednesday is Wotan or Mercury, Thursday is Thor or Brihaspati or Jupiter, Friday is Venus, Saturday is Saturn, Sunday is a synthesis. So the reality is that that's that first ring, as they call it, the Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. That's the first ring. So if you don't know like just the days of the week and how that exists inside your body, this is not about worshiping external gods. If there's anything that you would take away from this conversation, is that if you hate any of this stuff externally, you subconsciously hate it inside of you. So that means if you put into alignment any of this stuff inside of your consciousness, it will come in alignment in your body. So this should bring you great joy, because many people have been trying to find the power. But it is as simple as realizing that anything, I don't care what name you gave it, comes from your parents. It came from the originals. So whatever it is that you're looking to receive, you got to go to the originals. And this is why all of the mythos, let's say in the past, will say stuff like, Well, the cheetah gained its spots because in the beginning, the first cheetah ran across this thing and some stuff fell on him, some drops fell on him, and ever since then, the cheetah has spots. And all of us have looked at that like, that just can't be true. That is just so simple. That's not how it could work. Because that's encoded. That's a code. What it means is, hey, if you don't actually go to the origin and fix what you see is going on now, it will never be fixed. You got to go where it started. So when you think about, so what direction is that? Let's say you were running a dialogue. What direction is that then? It will say, answer it for yourself. Where do you get when you keep going outside? So let's just imagine in a socialist empire, which we're living in now. That's why we have social media. Everybody's going outside. They're going outside. They're going outside. Now what people say about another person really affects them. Now people that don't even know themselves can judge you, and you don't even know yourself, and they can come up with something that is supposed to be you. Totally confusing. So now as people go out further and further and further, they're lost. Actually, they're gone. And this is a direct reference to when a person is out of their mind. You know how when you watch, because it's a metaphor, when you watch a person that's out of their mind, do you think they know they're out of their mind? No. They're actually carrying on and doing all this craziness, talking to themselves, saying weird things, but they don't know that they're doing that anymore. But what if the entire world is out of its mind? And out of mind means that you're not actually in your body anymore. You're actually outside. Wow. You're projecting yourself into an external reality, even gaining stimulus from what other people think. You're so far out there and so lost outside of yourself. You don't even know, you turn around and it's a forest and you didn't actually put anything down to determine where to get back. That's the whole Alice in Wonderland thing. So literally we know then that the people who are the furthest out there, they're really gone. So if we go to them and like, why is he beating him like that? He's gone, honey. Wow. What is in there is something totally different. Because he went or she went too far outside and now they can't get back because they're lost. Now there's solutions for that, but just to know that's what happens. So then we know from there that if you go inside then, this means that you will probably make it to the origin point. And sure enough, and I can only speak from existence and experience, that when I decided to turn my energy within, hence the term inner standing, internally standing for something, no, I'm not going to eat this. No, I'm not going to believe this. I'm not going to believe anything. I don't have to do anything. You see what I mean? When you take back command over your own ship and just be like, then kill me then. Like, I'm not afraid of death. This is what the Popol Vuh shows. Once you figure out it's a game and you choose not to play the game anymore, that's when you unlock. But until then, if the game seems so serious to you and seems so real, but you're fake, you're locked in. And what am I talking about? I'm talking about people have their programs consist of, now program is DNA, so their program consists of a little bit of Arnold Schwarzenegger, a little bit of Barbara Streisand, a little bit of Kevin Hart. And this is why they're looping. Yeah. The knowledge they know is not about a language that they used to speak, because remember, the language is actually holding all the knowledge. That's why God says, let us go down and confuse them. This is, again, the jealous God who called the ancient mother and kicked her out, right? This is the same, whoever these beings are, it's the same one. I'm not going to put a face on them today. It's the same ones. But when they say, let's go down and confuse them, first of all, God's supposed to be kind of by himself and not actually taking any advice from anybody. But all of a sudden, he's got a council of people who he's talking to. So anyway, he says, let us go down and confuse them. But what do they use? Language. So it should dawn on us right away that the reason why we don't remember anything or know anything is not only because we're living the same thing over and over again, but also we don't have the original code system that we were using that let us know that. It's been replaced. And so when we come into ourselves, we start unlocking that coding system again. And that coding system is not something someone else is going to be able to tell you about. That's why they say that it's the Kabbalah, meaning oral resuscitation, meaning it's someone that knows it has to teach it to you. But the deeper mystery says, because that all goes on inside of you, you actually have to teach yourself your own language. So that way on the door, when it says know yourself, it's really saying, hey, don't walk in here. And the temple, it's not anybody who walks up externally to the temple. That's why these modern Masonic lodges stand there. You will be consumed. Because if you were stupid enough to actually believe that externally that you would find God, you deserve what's coming next. And many of them are reaping what is coming, what came to them for thinking that you can go outside to find something within. Now, that's the test that has come to us. In the past, was it like this? It probably was a totally different thing. You don't teach children on the same style. Like we probably, when we were 1 to 3, we got a certain level of education. Now our souls are in a phase where this is going to be your next level of maturity. You're going to realize how to raise your entire species. And the only way you're going to do that, if you think you're going to do that by yourself, you can do it to yourself. But to do it with everyone, that means that you're going to have to learn how to go into complete harmony with everything. You're going to have to be the real mariner. You're going to have to be able to visit all the lands and know what all of the customs really are. But see, we do that inside. And I can't say that enough. It's like some people thinking themselves, they're thinking about how much the plane ticket will cost. And what I'm saying is we are out of touch with the organs in our body. And the organs in our body are the planets.
Wow.
Now we're being taught to demonize our organs in our body. And then we're wondering why we're getting sick. And then every time we see something like from World Star, we associate that because of a subconscious program with devilish work and luciferic behavior. And because we're using those codes, and this is why it's better if you don't know what you're saying, not to say anything at all. Because we're using those codes, we're launching nukes directly at our own parents.
Wow.
So that's what we're talking about. So why are they ramping this up? Because they are gods of war and death. They actually want people to believe that death is real. And the only way to accomplish that is through fear. They want to push the reset button because they just want something to take them out of their misery. But the reality is that is happening on top of another massive lesson of why we have to grab the controllers and how we'll know next time to not allow our ancient knowledge and the knowledge of our mothers and fathers to ever be misconstrued. And we'll also be much more wise about who we trust, because a lot of this happened because we entrusted others with certain levels of knowledge that did betray us. And that became a lesson for them. And it has now become the final lesson for us. And again, what can we do about this? Know the days of the week. Know why the moon is also both parts of your mind, Rahu and Ketu. And know Rahu, again, is virtual reality. It's like why you can think in your mind and put things together in your mind. But if you think in your mind, you say, I'm going to jump 1,000 feet in the air. You can do that in your mind. But if you come into the reality and try to do that, we all going to laugh. Mm-hmm. Because in the virtual reality world, which is useful, you don't use that same power to feed your children with. You see what I mean? Meaning that you don't try to use something that was never working, never tested to work, never even real, to try to exist and feed your children off of. We are now in a world where with the cartoons and with the TV and with all of these different things, it is all a fictitious structure that is within our mind, and we're feeding our children this fiction. But we live the days of the week. So this is where we have this opportunity, because it's like the knowledge hasn't gone far enough it hasn't gone away from us far enough to where we can no longer grasp it. But we have to actually wake up to what these powers really are that we're living in every single day within ourselves in order to actually do something about what we see going on in the external society.
So good. Let me ask you this. I know I was telling everybody, there's folks in the comment section on Facebook Live, and they're receiving it. I want to ask you this in terms of going inside. And I want to use Star Wars as the analogy. I think it was The Last Jedi, where Rey is able to easily go into the dark side. she's able to submerge into this dark side, but there's this fear. Luke Skywalker says to her, no, don't go there. It's out of control. It's dark. Don't do it. Is there a part of this reality right now that requires us to go to that dark side in order to
Okay,
do what we need to do? Does that make sense? In order
I'm
to do
definitely going to show you just how every single thing that I talked about is exactly what you just summarized.
Yes,
Now,
that's what
in
I
the Star
gathered.
Wars trilogy, now remember, all of our characters have now taken on a whole different ensemble.
Right.
So Luke, who is Luce or Light or Lucifer, okay, finds out his father, who is Darth Vader. Vader is Saturn, by the way.
Right.
Vader is his father. So right away, we're seeing once again that the ancient mother and the ancient father are being recasted in this dark war role as if they're against each other. Okay, like that would be like your spirit actually warring against your flesh, which is actually happening inside of most people right now. They're not getting along. This is not a great relationship. They're warring against each other. So turning to the quote unquote dark side is actually becoming aware of what is the origins, or what does the dark side really mean? What does it consist of? And so I'll tell you what the dark side actually consists of, because the term is more. And this is why also in Latin, the word amor is a reference to Venus. Okay. Now, what the dark side is a reference to is that when people did stuff that they had no business doing, and they kept doing it for so long that it ended up now exacting what we call karma, it was Saturn that was responsible for paying that visit. Just like even today, when you get a summons from court or whatever, there is the sheriff or the sharif, which is an Arabic term, coming to visit you to serve you.
Oh, man.
Okay? So what we're talking about is that there was a natural development of fear around Shani, or this character, because it meant that if you saw the Reaper coming, well, you would just be like, oh shit, I hope he's not coming to get me, because you knew he was coming to get somebody, okay? And this was an act of the land. This was the global and cosmic constitution. This is what those who were the true Moors and are the Moors now, that was their original responsibility. They were like the galactic police. That's what Freemasonry truly is before it got completely taken over. They had a constitution, means all of us together. It's a nobility. This means that who we are, and first we all have an allotment. The allotment will sustain you. It is even more than enough. That is by edict of the king or your kin, okay, your family member. And from there, your nobility is what you can continue to earn. And what this is if someone does something amazing for all of us, their family continues to accelerate in nobleness. That makes sense. We do that today. If you write a bunch of books, everybody's like, wow, that's the guy that wrote all them books. Or that's the lady who has all those degrees. So that nobility side of things is normal. But what happens when you do something that it doesn't rise you in nobility? It lowers you in nobility. What happens? Well, you go down in nobility. So there was a certain, what they call a cutoff point. And when the cutoff point happened, you were no longer addressed as a noble. You were addressed as a color. Because how deep you had just gone into debt, because if you did something wrong, that was a debt. So how deep you had gone into debt became your color. And the worst debt level was black. So even to say, Tariq Bey he's a master at explaining this. To say you are black is to not actually say you're even a part of the human race. It is to say that you're in debt to the human race.
Wow.
And that you need to work yourself up back to the 7 colors before you even get back on the level again. And that's what that really means. That's why you don't never get anybody else but this particular culture referring to itself as a color. I mean, you don't go over even to Nigeria and they say, well, I'm black. They say I'm Nigerian. They say I'm Ghanaian. I'm Alkebuanian. I'm Madagascarian. That's what people are going to say, because that gives you your origins. You're going to actually say really what your mother's name is, right? Like, let's keep it real. You're going to come from your motherland. And when they say, what is your mother? You're going to tell them who your mother is. And that's going to determine your level of nobility. So this is also why, let's deep dive for a minute. Why do you have arranged marriages? Instead of us also seeing, because we see Saturn as a male, but Saturn is more like an old female. So, but it's androgynous. All these beings are androgynous. The perfect human is androgynous. We're androgynous now. We just split in this idea that we're separate. You see what I mean? This is for like falling down a ladder, what we're doing right now. It only gets worse from here if we choose not to come back into the center of ourselves. So what we're talking about here is that in this androgynous state of consciousness, well, let's just bring it into this context. If we, how can I put this? If we have, all right, here it is right here. The reason why they call it at times like knowledge builds, okay, is because if the master teacher, let's say, started teaching on January 1st, and here you come on February 14th, are you really going to understand what is being talked about if you didn't actually go back and at least cover as fast as possible what was already discussed? Meaning that, how can we ever expect to get any real high levels of knowledge if we didn't even have the first part of the tools necessary to build that knowledge? Mm-hmm. You see what I mean? Mm-hmm. So it can become like that. Like sometimes when people jump into some of my conversations midstream, they may be just completely lost because they don't have that previous year of us going through figuring out that we were really the cosmos, that it was so deep of how the planets are really us, that the tones and the vibration that come from the planets actually are being played inside of our organs. And that the word organ actually hints to that these pipes play. And if you are out of shape, literally, you're not in tune. And if you're not in tune, then you can't receive the transmission. And if you don't get the transmission, then you have no connection, so you're cut off. And this means you have no guide. And then when you have no guide, you wander around the forest with lions and tigers and bears, fearing for your life. And the only thing that's saving you is really the mark, which is 666, meaning carbon. You're a carbon-based life form. So regardless, even if you get crunched all the way down to the darkness, you will still come through as a diamond again. You see? So this is what I mean by when it turns a complete will. So let's keep going with what is this will? I'm going to metaphysically guide you through master knowledge so it just clicks. In the English language is the code that we're using now. It is encrypted. This shit is like the Enigma code. Now, anytime someone says 26 of anything in Kabbalah, you know it's only a reference to D, or the half of the circle. Why? Because 26 is always paired with another 26, which gives you 52. And that's why we have 52 weeks of the year, right? And because all of what we're doing in every single day is all about the stars and how the stars are moving. The stars are recording at every single point what is going to happen. So when we know that that 26 is there and it's in the English language, we know as masters that the other 26 is obviously hidden, okay? This is why all words generally that begin with D are dark and destructive and devilish and demonic and distorted. I can keep going all day with D words and how when you put a D on most things, it actually seems to take things into the darkness. And that is for a reason. Now, the reason why you would want to go to the darkness is because the darkness is like a baptism. It's when stuff gets serious. It's literally related to the Sirius cosmic system or the water mothers. This means they actually drown you. That is called the baptism. You die to your old self. And it gets, again, so serious in there because now you're dead and you're seeing the other side. People have experienced this through extreme trauma. People have experienced this through psychoactive substances. People have experienced this death in different ways. But when they get there, as they still realize they're still ticking and thinking, they're super afraid. And then they're begging to be alive again. And they're saying if they get back to this, they'll forever cherish every single thing that they messed up. Now, remember, Saturn also is capable of bringing the darkness. So what happens here is that this is what we mean by when you're turning a complete will. Because once again, if you take this 26 letters, right, you find that, well, there's another word that is called the tetragrammaton. There's a word that is the highest word in the Hebrew language. By the way, the Hebrew language, when you drop it all down on itself, just Google right now, Hebrew language hexagram, our pictures and many more will show up. But when you drop Hebrew down on itself, it makes what you call the Star of David. So this means if you drop all the letters down on themselves in a singular way, it will make a Star of David. This is to not only prove to you that all languages are symbols, but specifically ancient Hebrew is the flame language. It is the language that is able to create fire inside of your mind. It is magic. It can create things. That is also, again, the Om. All right. So now, since we see that, well, if English only has 26 letters, this means people only have half an Om. Exactly. This means that by nature, because of the program that is in their mind, they are partial to only one side of their bodies because they only have half of the code. And then the other half is actually hidden within the secret societies, and they're able to use the linguistic codes to actually activate things within a person. And when that fully activates, let's say when you get the other 26, you turn a complete wheel. A wheel is known, or turn, it's called an anu or an annual. That's where we get our word annual from. It turns a complete cycle. So if inside of your brain, you only have half of the code, this is equivalent of riding on tires that are flat. You can't turn a complete wheel before you already go back into division. So this is what I mean by this is deep down in there. That's why when you get deep inside of yourself, you'll figure this out. Yep. You get to the origins. You'll realize that it's on your hand. Why do you have 5 fingers? Why is there a pentagram? Why is the body's measurements in the proportion of 5? And then also, even deeper, why does phi and the word fighting, why are they similar? Because these are the laws of combustion. Fire versus wood versus water versus... This is how things actually turn. And this is why they were saying, oh, the earth is like the wheel or the chariot, the wheel of the chariot. So this means that this entire design still serves a cosmic purpose, even if you are in here fighting with everybody and warring. But is that what you want for your being, which is beyond all of this? See, there's nothing, it's people like, man, this is wrong, stuff's happening bad or wrong. Nothing is actually being done here outside of the laws and the rules of the Constitution, of the cosmos. It's just many people have been spoke to with a forked tongue, meaning that half truth, as the Kybalion talks about, part of what the person is saying is true, but because what they built their truth on a lie, if you build a truth, well, first of all, if you start off with something that is a lie, and somehow you find truth in it, is that really the truth? It's a half truth. And that's why we have to go back to the origin point. And when you go back to the origin point, it gets so simple because it'll be like, you'll sit in front of it like this. Well, I know that I'm going to eventually leave here. Everybody dies. It's me by myself. Forget mom, forget dad, my sister, my brother, everybody else, because they tripping. So what's really going to happen to me? If you're inside of your own body, you can actually have this conversation. If you're not inside your body, this conversation goes something like, it doesn't even last that long before you're already thinking about going to the corner store or getting a new car or something like that. But when you're inside, you will ask yourself the real question. So what's going to happen when we leave? Because do we die? So is there such thing as this? You'll start asking yourself these real questions. And when you really start getting answers back, the only thing that really becomes the guideline, especially amongst a sea of this esoteric knowledge, which is very confusing at first, is how you came in the world in the first place. Word is world, by the way. You just add an L. So how you came in this in the first place, through your parents' interaction. But your mom is a female, your dad is a male. That will produce a natural conflict, or what we people call opposites. Okay, but we know opposites attract. So just like I told you a minute ago, fighting, which generally occurs when people are opposites, creates life. This is how you got to wake up to, they'll be fighting on Earth all the time because they're literally using the geometry that actually equals that. And somehow this fighting not only produces more things through its combustion, this is astrophysics, through its smash, did you smash?
Wow. Y'all got
that. Okay, what's happening on the other realm? This seed that's coming through is attracted to this light. See, you're just like an insect. Your mother and father, when they're rubbing together like two sticks, make a specific kind of light. And that attracts a specific kind of seed. And here you come, and you're going to the light. Just like people say, when I'm leaving, I see the light. I'm going to the light. And then you come back through the portal, but you don't come out with a beard. Meaning you don't come out knowing every single thing that happened in that previous tense because you've been compressed so small. The body is gone. So half of the memory was in your heart and in your head. So if you didn't have any truth, you have nothing. And this is why it's so important for us to actually know the codes to self, because this stuff sticks to you when you quote unquote die. Also, other things can see it on you. You know how some people say, man, he's shining. He seems to be about that truth. I feel a vibe. And it's because when a person is containing truth, all of the other beings see it. It becomes your badge. This is why they talk about when they award someone with the regalia. They put all the badges and the diamonds and the jewels and all that, but they're external. So they put all that on the outside of themselves, but that's really going on within because your chakras are those stars. Your chakras are those gems. And for you to get the award, that means you had to accomplish the journey or accomplish the adventure. So yes, this is amazing because we have an adventure that is going on in life that we've been not participating in. So no wonder why things are boring. And so it is heating up. There is a lot of things happening. If you didn't notice, I mean, there's a lot of things occurring, but what that's doing is it's telling us, well, you don't have all day. Like there is time here. And as long as you know that you're in time and you haven't mastered time, that means you should stay urgent. And that's why we're seeing things happen in reality, because if we weren't seeing nothing happening and we were in this state that we're in right now, this would be almost no progress. But now that we're seeing stuff is happening and it's demanding that someone finds the power. Now, remember, these books also contain, in the Bible and all these books, they contain half-truths. So they talk about a time where nobody could find the Spirit of God. Now, the Spirit of God is the Om. This is why on the top of every single thing from every single secret society, you'll always see on the top a 4-letter word, Yod, He, Va, He. Okay? Now, because in Hebrew, all the words are numbers. When you add all that up, it equals the number 26. Okay? Now, we already talked about 26. So this tells you already that this entity that they have familiarized themselves with is going to be like a D if it doesn't meet its other half. So they actually function. I'm talking about secret societies function in the reality like devils for real, because they are affiliated with only half of the knowledge because it's only the masculine side. This is why in all of their traditions, they exclude the woman. That's why Venus, their arms are ripped off of all Venus statues, even from the ancient times, as a symbolism of actually taking the mother's wings off so that she can no longer fly. This is symbolic to why you can't use your astral body. And in order to get those wings back on, you're going to have to go to the origin point. And so I can't say this enough, because it becomes like a story, it becomes like a tale, and you can take it as science fiction at first. Meaning if somebody also feels like in this conversation that all of this is completely off, but it's fascinating, great. It's like watching the movie The Matrix then. Mm-hmm. Eventually you'll realize that you are really jacked in and that there are really squiddies and that there are ciphers and there are switches, meaning that all of those different people, Tank Dozer, Will Smith was really supposed to play the role, Sophia Stewart, all of what happened, you'll realize that all of that is actually real. Yeah. If you are real. Other than that, what happens is, and we'll keep diving, those who stole the knowledge have created an entire projection structure for your mind called Hollywood. It works on the same principles that are the deepest occult principles about the womb and about creation. It begins first with film called celluloids or celluloids, cellulose. Cellulose is what you find on the outside of all trees, on the outside of the leaves. All that is called cellulose. It's a polymer. So from that knowledge alone, that as above, so below, it is now hypothesized and proved to the fact that the stars that you see out in the galaxy, that what is around them is cellulose or celluloid. So if you go and research the first movie strips that they used, the first film they used, were actually called celluloids. So they would say, hey, bring me the celluloids, because that was the strip that they put it on. And then they created these as below stars. Okay, that's what you still call them today. And they made them and casted them in the negative, which they tell you the strip really is. And that this strip runs then like a program because it's projected, which they call it a projector, into a person's mind using light and cathode ray tubes, which are shaped like hexagrams, RGB. So at this stage, what is now going on is the person is being programmed. That's why the first TVs, Google it, they look like crystal balls. The TV was first a circle, and then it's now a square to show you the precession. Even it had curved edges like Apple for a while. But this is all the same knowledge taking a person deeper and deeper into a spell. And again, now that we know that, let's go deeper. So what do they call the thing that they put the movies on? The real. So they're literally insisting that this is the reality, but you know it's not. And just like you look at that wheel, go Google it, look at a reel. What does it look like? A wheel. Yep. This is actually the real way that the earth is shaped. Like they call it a flat earth because earth is only memories. It's only magnetic memories on a strip. So they knew this because they penetrated our mysteries. Our mysteries were all out in the open as the whole ground cracked open and everybody had to go back inside again. Meaning that even right now, this is the sixth sun. And I'm not saying your physical ground is going to crack open, but I'm saying for a lot of people, their spiritual ground is cracking open and they have to go back inside again. So as we keep going, and what else they created in this phantasmagoria, which is what Disney called it, is there a way to actually project another reality inside of a person's mind. And here's the issue. The nobility still exists, but it is only able to get to you in the real world. So if you live in a fake world, they can't see you. And this is literally how it works. This was a design that took thousands of years when they sequestered Aiwass, which was also found in Kemet and basically buried. Aiwass, this is what the Germans cracked into. Aiwass, how can we control and rule the world? Aiwass said automatically, you're not willing to do what I need you to do. And they said, we will do it. We will put the entire world in debt. And so thus the money systems were devised. The exchequer was devised. Your signature and putting your signature in the dollar bills, the crypto, the dead currencies, all of this stuff was all devised to do what? To sell the soul. Wow. To actually get us to a stage where somehow through all this magical projections from these crystal balls of light, we will become fooled enough to believe that the highest value is not still each other. Meaning that in any real economy, what has the highest value is the people. That's how we function in tribe. We're not told directly we're still in that system. We're made to believe that cars are more valuable than humans. Toys are more valuable than humans. Golds, gems are more valuable than humans. And that's not true. And it's so not true, they still take a census. What is a census? A census is to determine how many people are in the state so they can get cut a check from Britain. And so this means, of course, every state does function as a company, but it also means that Milwaukee is not getting a big check, but New York is getting the biggest check. Wow. And the more that they can keep attracting everyone to the city, which actually is a Hindu term for power, because taking all the knowledge, the powers attracted people, so they gravitate towards the powers. The gurus used to sit in caves meditating, building this power. And when people got sick, they were attracted to being there. They put that same kind of energy, but inverted, in cities, and people gravitate towards cities, and they attract them like businesses. And they sit in these cities, and they get paid more and more, and they increase in power, because they are using human beings like batteries, as we know, meaning that they are increasing and enriching themselves off of the ancient knowledge and awareness that each of us is indeed powerful and functions as a unit of power, but you're supposed to be ruling over yourself. You see, this same knowledge, let me explain it to you, just really, really simply. Let's say you're in a family, you're the mother, somebody else is the father, whatever your gender is. This is really about, when you're not watching TV, making sure that you're surviving, meaning that when you haven't been hypnotized, what a family is about is making sure we survive. So the more kids we have, first off, the more this ensures that when we get older, that we'll be able to rest. But we know we can't rest now. There's still 18 years, 20 years, depending on if we have some bad kids. So the reality is that we agree for this time that we're going to work in order to be able to rest at a certain point, and this continues, right?
Yep.
And the more of us there are, the less work we got to do. So you can imagine that with 9 billion people, we wouldn't be doing nothing really but chilling and loving each other. But no, it's the division going on, right? So what happens though is let's tap in then to just this awareness, because I'm going to desist for a minute, because I can say so many wise things all in one sentence, but it's really about what do you need to hear? So again, instead of us even speaking, because the audience is there, if they have questions, they can ask the questions, but it's like specifically, if you were in front of somebody who could really tell you everything,
yeah.
Did you even prepare your questions? And I'm not speaking to you directly, but I'm just saying, we are in life right now that in a way where we don't even know what we really want anymore. Because even every time we get what we think we want, we start mistreating it again.
Yep.
We start abusing it again. And true, we've learned that from the society, but wow, we have to really see that all of what we're also experiencing externally is something that we're actually doing to ourselves. So this healing, it's not going to take place in just a 1.5 hour segment or 2 hour segment on a show. But what can happen here is you can get something that you hear. That's why I call it rapid fire. Something that you hear that lights the fire. It becomes the catalyst that lights up what allows you to get back to yourself. Because you're out there and you're lost and it's dark. You just came out of the baptism. And as I said, it gets so serious. You just imagine this as a mother who will actually drown her child. You see, this is a deep conversation. What kind of mother would drown her child? Who would even, you can't even fathom doing that. Women can't even fathom doing that today, just to show how different the ancient mind thinks about preservation. If they see the child is too weak to continue to live on, they'll baptize that child again. The child will go into the realm of Sirius. It'll be all like, wow, I need to do better and get myself together and better. And then they'll come back again and they'll be probably better. So we have to come into this awareness that instead of us always having this fear about, all these different things that can hurt us, we're already being hurt. We need to get to the root of the pain. And when we find that pain is disobedience, being caused by disobedience means you're not honoring your mother and your father. And even the Necronomicon, which is again one of the other books that they took, the Necronomicon is one of the only books expunged from the necropolis, which is the city of the dead. It means that everything about how to take things from death back to life was studied in that city. The book was the Necronomicon. Now, all the stuff that is written in there is a horror movie, because that was the edit. But right in the beginning, they give you an essence of what was going on in this book, and it just tells you something very simple. Your ancestors, which is your DNA, your memories, are so vast that you have to consistently remind them that you're here. And you do that by living your best life. And when you remind them, then they always keep their eye on you. But when you don't honor them, they fall asleep. This is a reference to your chakras, okay? Your chakras fall asleep, which then you lose your powers. And then when you lose your powers, just like if you ever seen in nature when there's an animal that is weak and how all sorts of stuff just starts coming out of nowhere because they can sense that weakness, that's what happens. And that's why these fluffy stories of everything is love, well, if there's love, there must be hate. Have you ever had somebody do something to something that you love? What is the feeling after that? You feel hate. So this is about, because I was saying in the language, you're only getting half of the story. This is why most people prefer good. They prefer the light. They're blinded by the light. They don't know the other half of the darkness or the other side of the moon, which is Rahu. They don't know about this aspect of their subconscious, which the moon stands for, the subconscious of the mind. They haven't been delving deep into that side, but now we must go. And the interesting thing is, we all go by ourselves, but we meet everyone there. And I'll say that again. I always say to people, even now, if you go inside, you'll meet me there, because I'm inside. And that's where all of us are now. And if you're still outside and it's getting a little thin, you're not able to find people that are able to vibe with you and connect to you. Once you go back in, instead of looking for them on Instagram, you will actually then start vibing, and you'll find people that just come out of nowhere. Man, I can't tell you how many people that just came out of nowhere. I will hide myself behind 5 locked doors and still find, when I turn around, somebody there like, yo, what's good? Yeah. And they'll be like, yo, I'm resonating with what you were talking about. I'm like, I see. But meaning that when we're resonating what we are, when we're being real, not the external real, but the internal real, not reality, but actuality, when we're actually who we are, then this magic, this power, why they revere the pentagram so much, why they revere this hexagram, why are all these symbols around that now you're scared of, what all this really means. And even the end of this, again, because just how I show you how they spin the Lucifer and Venus, look at now when you see a Masonic seal. What it consists of is just a square and a compass. Ooh. A square and a compass. Once again, you see the triple bind. A square and a compass means astronomy, geometry. Why? Well, if you would take one moment to just study it, you will find out weird stuff. Like certain countries, the same time in which it takes you to move from one place to another, when you divide that number by the distance from the star, they're equivalent to each other. And this just keeps going on and on and on. You find all these different connections because this is a master key to space and Earth. Astronomy, geometry. So you get the awareness that the heaven is connected to the Earth. There's no God or Santa Claus sitting in the sky that is so separate from who you are right now. They're so interested in figuring out what is actually going to happen with you and when you're going to wake up to who you truly are. But there's a disconnect. And that disconnect is very similar to when a circuit is detached from the motherboard. And this is why every single thing that we're seeing in reality today that's supposed to be advanced technology is plagiarized directly from our mother. You see, the circuit board's got sun. What is the CPU? The CPU is the sun. When it comes through every single morning, it processes what's in the clouds. What are the clouds? Our ideas. Anybody who's cloud busted knows that. And we're internal completely. It proves, because when we're all thinking as a collective and we're thinking dark or all sorts of different things, the sky reflects that. So let me go on. So you have the CPU, which is the sun. You have our thoughts collectively in the cloud. So when the CPU comes and begins to process everything in the cloud, all it does is just store all the memories. And as the memories are being stored on the hard drive, everything is plugged into the motherboard. And all of the different points that are soldered, called the circuits, are the stars. And if you look in with your third eye to the sky, you'll notice there's actually lines connecting the stars. They're not separate. There's a grid up there, but most that don't have a functioning third eye can't see it. But when you get this master knowledge, you're only becoming aware of yourself. And this is why it's so important, again, that this knowledge is coming to you this way, because you got folks that went headlong trying to find what we're talking about today outside of them. Yes. They found something, but it wasn't themselves. And that's why, again, people like George Bush say evil has found a willing servant. This is because if we were with our ancient mothers long enough for them to teach us, they would explain to us, especially with the Zarin cultures or the Tsar cultures, that anytime you have a child, you're bringing a star in. You're calling a comet, okay? So meaning when you go into sexual acts were sacred. They were really rituals. The rituals are so deep, the grandmothers would be back there, be in the room with you when you copulated with your husband for the first time.
Yikes.
That's how deep this is. This is already written. The British went out there and expunged all the knowledge from the Sudanese Tsar cult, which even the male masculine Russian czars named themselves after thousands of years in the future and flipped everything over to a patriarch. But before then, it was a matriarch, and czar is actually a reference to a serpent or a snake. You know, hello, if you tell everybody that their great-great-great-great-great-great-grandmother may be a snake, I'm sure they probably have a hard time going back to their origins. But yet the Naga And the Nagus actually reveal this very cosmos will continuously teach us. So again,
I gotta jump in. They tell me there's a show right after us, but let me ask
there
you
it
this.
is.
Can we do
There
this
they
again?
got their sample.
They got the
That's
sample.
all we could really do in this space and time is if you heard something that resonates with what
Yeah.
you want to know more about.
Yes.
You could definitely check us out at Secret Energy. We can take time in the future to just dissect one thing and say,
Yep.
hey, we're just going to completely expunge the English language.
Yes.
But now
Yes,
you
yes.
know the range also. And that's important,
And-
just as everything else.
And we have finally made this connection again.
Yes.
We've had followers on Urban Intellectuals. We've been sharing your information for years. Literally, started with Urban Intellectuals 2013, and you've been a part of it. You don't even know you were a part of it, but we've got
Beautiful.
a good 1 million. I think we're at 1.5 million followers on Facebook. So
Wow.
you're on the main page. You're plugged in. We got this connection. You have the platform of the Mental Speak Show, Fishbowl Radio Network. We've got
Thank
you.
you so much.
Yes, thank you so much for your time.
You too, sister.
And I'm going to throw this out there just to kind of sum it up for everyone. When you listen back to the show, it's going to take a lot to digest, and we will do this again. But apply this to your city, apply this to your state that you live in here, where we are in America. We're going to, again, he's speaking to us from outside of the bubble to give us perspective. Go within. You're going to understand it in time, and we're going to keep giving you the information that you need to break it down. Thank you so much. Great feedback and resonance on the feeds here.
Absolutely, sister. Thank you so
Yes.
much. And also, of course, if anyone wants to check us out, we're, of course, at Secret Energy.
Yep.
And there's a lot there. So there's
So
more
much.
like a, archive of the information and the step-by-step process of,
Yes.
how we became aware of these things.
Yes, yes. And also make sure people know your understanding is the main page on YouTube. Yes.
Mhm.
So for those who want to go tap into that, again, we'll do this again. Let us know if you need us. Thank
Okay.
you so much.
Thank you.
All right, Brother Seven. Take care.
All right, Latanya, wholeness.
Wholeness. And to the Middle Speak family, we are out. There's a show coming up after us. You catch the show Fridays, 5 to 7 p.m. Central on the Red Stream. We happen to do this on the Green Stream today because we wanted to utilize the time. Thank you so much for tuning in, and we'll see you next week.
Okay.